Hi and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today's author conversation is one from my vision board for the year, so I get to check that off. I'm very excited. Not just for checking it off, but also the fact that I got to talk to this author because I do enjoy her work so much. Today is Manda Collins. She has written 21 books so far. Her most recent is A Spinster's Guide to Danger and Dukes, which is part of her series that's like Nancy Drew meets Jane Austen, but with more spice. So it's a really fun series full of, I'll just let this interview speak for itself because there's some stuff in this book that I was not expecting and it was highly entertaining. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Manda Collins. Well, welcome to Literary Hype. Your brand new book is now out in the world, Spencer's Guide to Danger and Dukes. How are you feeling now that it's out there?
I feel good. It's been longer for this one than the last couple because we had the supply chain issue that bumped back the release date. So like I didn't have a book out at all in 2022. So that was weird. It's like finally out now and I get to talk about it and like eyeballs are on it.
How hard was it to keep yourself from talking about it with that extended delay in production?
It was kind of hard just because people kept asking me about it. Because they were like, well, who's going to be in the next book? And I'm like, okay, well, it's, you kind of saw the setup in the previous book. So it'll be Langham and Flora. It wasn't that hard just because I don't think I put out that many feelers about it. But like giving out teasers like in the little video I did where I talked about the caves and the, uh like people were like, oh, so what's that? And I'm like, well, can't really tell you, but you'll see. I'm not very good about like keeping secrets in general. And um, so like if somebody had really pressed me on it, I probably would have caved and told them. But for the most part, it was okay. Like it's not state secret, so it's all good.
So this story does follow Flora and Langham, with Flora revealing she has a different name.
Yes.
So introduce us to what's going on in Spinster's Guide to Danger and Dukes.
Flora is like getting ready to cat sit for Caro after the wedding, and is like reading the newspaper and sees this article that basically says that her sister is in trouble for murdering her husband. And Flora's like, oh my God, I have to get out of here. I have to go to my sister. And so she goes to the train station and like immediately gets pickpocketed. So she can't buy her ticket. And she happens to run into Langham, who is there because he's about to go home to his grandmother's birthday party, which she usually uses as an occasion to gather up a whole bunch of eligible ladies to like parade in front of him. And so she runs into him. She's like, oh, you're the last person I want to see. And but he ends up like inviting her to go with him on his private train carriage to the little town, which also happens to be where her sister is being held. So then they like work out this deal where he will help her with her sister if she agrees to be his fake fiance for the duration of the house party. And hijinks ensue.
Here for the hijinks. They're great hijinks. So this is a fake dating book. How much fun did you have playing with that trope?
It was fun. It's one of my favorite tropes. Like I like I'm like one of those people who I get very uncomfortable when people are pretending to be somebody that they're not. So you didn't really see any knowledge of Flora, knowing that she was faking being Flora that whole time, because just as a person, that just makes me very nervous. But fake dating is completely different, because you're being yourself. You're just pretending like you're dating this person, so you're not pretending to be a completely different person. So yeah, so I loved all of that. I loved, like, the whole family's reaction to them being engaged, and then them on the inside being like, haha, we're not really engaged. And just like, just all of it. It's a fun trope.
And you've also got the fun of the murder mystery going on.
Yes.
Um, what's it like for you to craft something that is pretty much a genre bender? Like, you've got the murder, you've got the romance, it's funny. What's that process like for you to create something that doesn't fit in just one genre?
It's kind of the only way I can write. Like, I've tried to write without the mystery element, and it's just boring. It's like I need that, like, because basically my core story is hero and heroine, or the main couple working together to solve a mystery. It doesn't necessarily have to be solving a mystery. I've kind of figured out that it can be just them working toward accomplishing a goal. And so, like, as I'm writing it, like, one plot feeds into the other plot. So I use the beats of the mystery to kind of intertwine with the beats of the romance. And so, like, when things happen, like when there's a twist, usually there's something that happens in the romance at the same time, or at around the same time. And so so while I'm writing it, it's just kind of like braided together as I go, which sounds really complicated, but it's just the only way I know how to do it.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm a plantser.
My
So,
people.
like, yeah, I can't plot out everything, because after I've finished the plotting part, I feel like I've finished the book and there's nothing for me to do, even though that's not true. But my brain, that is how my brain works. And so I have to leave enough unfinished so that I can like have some serendipity along the way, and, like, kind of like have some twists and stuff that comes from inside my brain while I'm writing as part of the process. I'm just too impatient. Like, I feel like, because when I first started out, I looked at a couple of writing books, romance writing books specifically, that were so plotter oriented that, I mean, you would have like a 6-sheet Excel spreadsheet, like, filled in completely with, like, every detail of every beat of every scene. And, like, I do not work that way. And also, part of my brain, I guess, is that I feel like if I'm gonna do all that work, I might as well just write. Like, I don't want to waste word count on a spreadsheet, which is terrible. But I'm like, I want to put it into the book. I don't want to put it into the pre-writing stuff, which probably shows in some of my, like, timeline problems when I'm writing, but it is what it is.
I mean, I totally understand that. Like, as when you go to write, it's like you want to be writing the thing, not the something that's not going to make the light of day. I can't
Right.
understand. It feels like
Right.
time.
Right. It's like writing the deleted scenes, but like you can't even use it for your newsletter.
So, what inspired this series for you?
I'm a big My Favorite Murder fan, the podcast. And like whenever I'm coming up with a series idea, I try to find something that's going on in the zeitgeist that is like poppy, that will catch some editor's attention. And I usually like take it. And with this, I thought, what if My Favorite Murder, but it was Victorian? And like, how would that work? The way that I worked it was that it was a newspaper column that these two women wrote. They met at a dinner party, uh, which is similar to Karen and Georgia, but I didn't like rip it from their lives. Like it's not My Favorite Murder, but like some of the premise was they're both into like crime stories and stuff, which is true historically. Like the newspapers were huge in the Victorian era, and so was crime writing. And there were like there's this book called The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, which by Kate Summerscale, which follows a big murder case in the Victorian era, and the detective who worked on it, who like had suspects all along, but the Victorian populace did not like the idea that it was a young lady and her brother who had murdered their like 2-year-old younger brother, half brother. And so he like lost his position. And so like I kind of took from that too. Eversham is my version of Mr. Witcher, but hotter. And it was My Favorite Murder meets The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher.
What is your research process like for writing historical fiction like this?
The first book, I did the most research because I was kind of laying the foundation of the journalism and the policing, and and The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher had like a great bibliography, so I like stole from that and looked at stuff. As we've gotten further along in this series, like I'm on the third book now, I just finished the first draft of the fourth book. I've gotten, yeah, I'm not saying the research doesn't matter anymore, because it does on various aspects, but I feel comfortable enough in this world that I've created that I can kind of play around with stuff in a way that I don't necessarily, I don't know. I feel like this is maybe my most, I don't want to say it's ahistorical, but like I'm always aware that what I'm writing is not just like it would have been if I was writing it in the Victorian era. So I know that I'm writing in 2023. I'm American. I'm not a 19th century British person. So I'm always aware that the audience that I'm writing for is a contemporary audience now. And a lot of times I'm using my books to explore things that are happening now, but through the lens of that. When I first start out, I just generally have an idea of like what kind of crime, because I'm doing it kind of true crime. So for this book, I did research into the Hellfire Club, which was real. I thought like, so why would there be a knockoff Hellfire Club? And I was like, okay, well, this guy was just feuding with Sir Francis Dashwood, and Dashwood wouldn't let him in, because I figured there had to be people who didn't get in. That part was really fun. Like just coming up with like that the little chapel with the stained glass windows, and like I was like, it's not the most depraved 19th century. I mean, they did some pretty effed up shiz in the 19th century. So, but I was like, what could I do that would be like really creepy and follow culty tropes?
Oh man, you have touched on so many things that are on my list of questions in that one answer. Whew, I'm like, I don't even know where to go next. There's so many ways I can take this. So we'll get to book 4 because that is a big question for me. That was a big one.
I get it.
Let's go with the Lucifer Society.
Right.
Yes, because I was not expecting it to take a turn like that.
Yeah.
How much fun was it to play with that and create, which led to the shall we say, spicy cave scene?
Yes, the spicy cave scene. I knew I wanted this book to be the cult book, like, because I was kind of following the My Favorite Murder thing. I'm trying to do a different kind of crime per book. So like the first book was the serial killer, second book was the kidnapping, and this one is the cult book. And so like I knew about the Hellfire Club, but I didn't know as much as I did after I researched it. And like really the actual Hellfire Club, like there's like all kinds of rumors about what they actually did, and like that they murdered people in the like as part of their rituals, and like Benjamin Franklin was a member. Like, yeah. So like when I was coming up with it, like there was a review of this third book that talked about how like it's like there's creepiness, but it's also kind of soft. It's like soft creepy. It's like a cozy romance. I didn't want anybody to like murder anybody as part of the ritual, like on the page. Like I don't like a lot of like, you know, murder,
gore and guts and all that.
Yeah. Though there is that one part, but I made clear it wasn't human. So I was like,
it's true.
No,
you didn't make sure that it was like no one really believed it was happening.
No people were harmed in the making of this book. I had a lot of fun writing it. Like I listened to the Carmina Burana a lot, which is that like choral, like do 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 do, you know. So I listened to a lot of that. I had like a Halloween playlist that like played it was like that, and the music from The Exorcist, and like just all this creepy music while I was like writing that part. And yeah, like that part of the process like is really fun because you just get to kind of go wild like in your imagination within bounds. And so yeah, like that part, that was just really fun. And like you know, like figuring out what the St. Lucifer's chapel would be like, and I kind of based Langham Abbey on Sir Francis Dashwood's actual estate. So like when you see that vista across the lake and like up there, like there's pictures all over the internet, but like so I imagine that the chapel is like up there on that rise across the lake. Like there's the Temple Folly. Basically, my idea of it was very similar to that.
Your books they kind of tackle a little bit of feminism in a time where feminism didn't exist.
Right.
How do you balance like staying true to the history-ish while raising these points.
It wasn't called feminism, but there was a women's movement during, I mean, in the 18th century even, and probably before that. My studies only go back to the 18th century. But like the blue stocking movement was in the 18th century. And in the 19th century, you had, especially in the second half of the 19th century, you had the struggle for women to get the vote, and women trying to get into universities. Like they could go to the university, but they couldn't get a degree at Cambridge that said their degree was from Cambridge until like the 1920s. So like there is a long history of women, I don't want to say behaving badly, but like fighting against the system. And so to me, that's not the ahistorical part. There are complaints sometimes from readers who say, a woman wouldn't do this in the 19th century. Like she couldn't behave like this. And the thing is, people are people. People behave all kinds of ways. Like just because it wasn't the way that most women behave doesn't mean that women didn't do that, or they didn't do it and escape social folly, or, you know, because there's always like the argument like, oh, well, a duke wouldn't marry a servant. Well, hello, dukes married servants. Like there's real thing. There was a lady who married her footman. Like it happened. So like just because we only have one example of it that we can point to doesn't mean that it never happened. Was there like a duo who created a crime column in the 19th century, who like got a massive following, and there was like a book club created of it? Probably not. But to me, like that's fine because I'm writing fiction in the 21st century and I'm writing for people to have fun. And that is the best compliment I can ever get in a review, is that this book was so much fun. Like that just makes my day.
It's true. And like this one I had with me on a flight, and I was expecting to, you know, like read it here and there over an entire weekend. I read about 85% of it on that one flight. And it's like, well, now what am I going to do the rest of the weekend? It's just so bingeable. Like it's just, you don't want to stop. And conveniently, a flight is a great place to just not stop.
I love it. That is what I love to hear.
And so you've kind of gotten this big boost from Bookstagram. What's it like for you? You do some Bookstagramming yourself, and now your books are kind of popping up everywhere. What's that been like, experiencing it, seeing your book in your feed all the time?
The audience has gradually been building since Spencer's or Ladies Guide. But like this book, like as a release day, like this is the busiest I've been on social media, just like because I'm one of those goobers, like I like to reply or respond to every comment that people make. Well, it's kind of getting to the point where that may not be like possible. I mean, I still try to do it, and it's not like beyond yet, but like it's a lot. I used to think that reviews, you know, that your publisher like gets for you, like they must all be, you know, like blowing smoke. But I'm like, they can't all be like faking enthusiasm for it. Like not all of them. Like maybe some, like maybe 10%. I thought this book was going to be terrible. Like, and I think it with all of my books, I just think this the one that's gonna ruin everything. And so like when reviews started drifting in on NetGalley, I was like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's okay. And then like after a little while, I was like, well, maybe people really do like it. Maybe I was wrong. And I was wrong. I just want to let everybody know I'm very grateful for all the reviews and buzz about my books. Like it just it makes me really happy, and it I just like knowing that I have my people out there. Like that it's like they say every book has its reader, and I kind of know who my readers are now, and it's really cool to know that there's people out there like all over the country who've never met me, don't know me from Adam. Like I'm just very suspicious. Like I just I just am like, oh, this person just likes it because they know my cousin or something like that. And so like knowing that there are all these people out there that don't know me from Adam who read my book and enjoyed it, it made them laugh and they had fun. Like that just makes me really verklempt. Like it's it's pretty great. So I appreciate all the love.
Well, we appreciate you writing all these wonderful books.
I wrote something that people enjoyed and think is fun. Like that's that is good enough for me. That makes me happy. If you have fun, I have fun. It's all about the fun.
Exactly. It's a good time. It's joy, embracing the joy. It's a good time. So you were just touching on a little bit of that self-doubt. How do you go about continuing to put yourself out there with all these books and kind of fight that self-doubt? Like mental health is so important. How do you take care of yourself?
I mean, I do have self-doubt, obviously, and being a writer, especially now, like when there's like an article a day basically saying, books are dead, no one reads anymore. For the most part, I think I kind of take it in stride. Like I've had enough real like trauma in my life. I generally can look on the bright side. Like, and if something gets beyond me, then I have a few select friends that I can go to and like whine. I kind of know where I am in the pecking order of books. So when I get like when somebody puts me on a list or when I get good reviews and stuff like that, like that's just gravy. So I'm just excited about that. Like I've been writing for 10 years. I've written 21 books and I'm still around, which is great because there's a lot of people who got published the same year I got published because we were all in a little group together who are no longer publishing. And there are some people who were really great writers who are no longer publishing, which makes me sad. But like I'm still around. Somebody still wants to put my books out. People still want to read my books. So like that's pretty good. Like I'm not gonna get a Pulitzer, but did I ever really want a Pulitzer? No, not really.
What do you know about writing now after 21 books that you wish you would have known when you first got started?
I wish I had known, though I'm glad I didn't because then I wouldn't have continued, was that it doesn't really get easier. Like every book is different. And every book, like with some books, it's the editing process that's hard. With some books, it's the drafting process that's hard. And you just don't know what it's going to be like until you get into it. But it's kind of like childbirth, like, or so I've heard about childbirth, is that you forget how terrible it is. And so then you're like, yeah, I'll have another kid. And then you're like, oh, I forgot this was so terrible. And it's kind of like that. You kind of forget about it until it's time, and then you're like, oh no, I forgot. This is hard. And like there's parts of it that just stay the same level of difficulty no matter like where you are in your career, and that is hard. It's the most fun I've ever had on a job. So I'll take it.
Okay, and now the most anticipated for me. Because
Okay.
I was looking at your backlog and I was like, okay, she does a lot of series with 4 books, and this is number 3, but Amazon said 3 of 3, and I was very concerned that this was going to be the end. Said book 4. What can you tell us about your plans for book 4?
Book 4 is Adrian, the Lord Adrian, the younger brother of the Duke of Langham, and the governess Jane, and they knew each other in the past, and that is really all I can say about that. She is the governess for their cousins, and the kids are really terrible. But she is the governess for someone else in their book, and they will meet up again.
Do you have a favorite trope that you like to play with?
I really love a good marriage of convenience. I haven't written one in a while. Well, I guess technically Caro and Val is marriage of convenience, but it's not really, because it's not like the funnest to read is where like it's marriage of convenience and they don't even know each other really. Like that's really entertaining. Like marriage of convenience, like enemies to lovers. Like so far, all 3 of these have been enemies to lovers. 4th remains to be seen. I'm not going to tell you. See, I can't keep a secret. There's not really I don't like revenge tropes. Like revenge is like my least favorite trope because it's just meanness, which, I like murder, so that doesn't make any sense, but there it is. But really, like when it comes to reading, like I'm not really against anything except for revenge. And really, if it's done right, I'll like revenge. Like I don't have any hard and fast rules when it comes to tropes, I guess.
And now for the most fun question. Because this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about right now?
I am hyped about the first book has already come out, and I just blurbed the second book, the title of the first book, which is The Murder of Mr. Wickham. Yes. And the second book is, the title has Mrs. Willoughby in it. And it's so like, it's basically Jane Austen world with like as if all of her novels existed in the same time period in the same universe. And the sleuths are the son of Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, and the son of the hero and heroine from Northanger Abbey, or their daughter and Jonathan Darcy, who's the son of Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, and they're sleuths, and they're solving the murders of these characters from like the books. If you've ever dreamed about murdering Mr. Wickham, this is your chance to read about it. And they're just super fun. I just had the best time reading them.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out and talking about your new book.
You are so welcome.
Thanks again to Manda for spending some time with me and chit-chatting about her book, A Spinster's Guide to Danger and Dukes. I really enjoyed this one, and I hope you do too. If you're interested in getting your hands on a copy of the book, those links are down below, as well as where to find Manda on social media, so you can give her some love over there. And while you're down that side of the page, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It really does help things out. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, see you later.